For centuries it brought immense wealth to this Belgian valley. Wool from all over Belgium was transported to large wool processing plants, where it was transformed into high-quality textiles. Today, this once important industry has mostly vanished over time. However, one truly incredible factory remains, preserved as a time capsule from a bygone era. In this episode, we are taking a deep dive into the long history and dramatic fall of this once region-defining industry. Via the old train depots where unprocessed wool once arrived, we entered the site. We went straight to our main objective, which was also the oldest part of the property. These nearly face-like structures are the boilers. Once used to produce hot steam from coal to power many of the machines on the property. The 4 boilers were locally produced, which was quite common at the time. This is also an introduction to what this place is. A true time capsule, characterized by an advanced state of decay. Nature and vintage industry have combined to create this spectacular scene. These rooms remain much in the same as when they were built over 100 years ago, with minimal modernizations over the years. Above the boiler was a maze of pipes, and some spare parts were left behind as well. Even more fascinating was the small workshop we found. Abandoned industry rarely gets better than this. Since the 1800s, 2 factors have been central to this valley: wool and clean water from the Ardennes mountains, which created an ideal environment for wool processing for the textile industry. However, some Belgian and German industrialists and bankers had a different, more revolutionary plan. Instead of using river water, they adopted a new US-based process involving the use of chemicals to clean the wool. With river pollution not seen as an issue at the time, there were only benefits, such as the creation of useful byproducts, like lanolin, which could be used in the growing cosmetics industry. Just before World War I, 35 tons of wool could be processed per day. This was the central workshop for the machine house, a true step back in time. Old school machinery and tools were left behind in a true state of decay. No vandalism could be found here. All the destruction was caused by nature itself. An old coal-powered kiln was also located here, used by a blacksmith to repair and create parts for the machines. Over many years, this small workshop remained an exception, offering a rare glimpse into how industry once looked and operated. It was time to move on to the real production halls of the facility. Large bales of unprocessed wool was still scattered everywhere, creating a strong stench throughout the halls. Some machines were also left behind, seemingly never cleaned out. Further along, the halls were mostly empty, with the occasional lonely old machine left behind. These halls date back to the 1920s, when a large modernization took place. Toward the nearby river, the factory halls were in a truly terrible condition. Littered with mud and with walls sometimes held up only by concrete beams, it was strange to see how this could have happened. But more on that later. After some modernizations following World War I, the factory expanded over the years, with new sections built around the site. This expansion, however, halted after World War II. Post-World War II, the wool processing market in Belgium changed rapidly due to increasing competition. In a short time, all the once numerous factories closed down, leaving this one and another as the last still operating in the region. After merging, these two factories created a brand. We then crossed a catwalk to the next level of the treatment plant, which led us to yet another incredible scene. An old-fashioned lab, still containing equipment, stood abandoned. Here they likely tested the quality of the wool and lanolin, so it wasn't as large as labs where more extensive experiments took place. Like the wool-ridden part we had just visited, this one also didn't appear to have been cleaned out properly. Various chemicals were now left to decay, some leaking all over the counters. On the factory floor next door, most machines had already been removed some time ago. In the center was an open courtyard, which was green colored compared to the grey factory halls. With its glass roof, this small part felt more like a greenhouse today. This, combined with the classic industrial design, untouched by renovations or destruction, made for a striking sight. Aside from this, the next levels were mostly emptied out, with little points of interest. However, the roof was far more unique. The greenhouse-like structure was actually where the wool dried after treatment. The floor beneath was made of asbestos plating, making this level probably the most dangerous place in the whole factory. After the rise of the new firm, it was the last one standing in all of Europe still processing wool. This family-run company still exists today and is recognized as the true last one standing in Europe, continuing a tradition that has lasted for centuries. However, the older parts of the facility which we are exploring today had to be abandoned around the 1990s, when they were deemed too outdated. We then headed to one of the last sections of the facility. This pipe-filled room was where lanolin was collected and processed. This installation was entirely Belgian-made by an Antwerp-based firm. Surprisingly, the installation itself was quite photogenic, characterized by a collection of different gauges and meters. Downstairs, even more pipes could be found, but they were covered by a thick layer of dirt on the ground. This brings us to a more recent history. In the summer of 2021, a devastating flood wreaked havoc across Western Europe. In this valley, dozens of people lost their lives, and it caused massive damage. This is also why some parts are filled with mud and why the walls near the rivers are crooked. The flood also cracked open this unique time capsule to the outside world due to a collapsed outside wall. Today the site is protected again by a preservation organization. Whether all the other industrial buildings will be saved is unknown, but hopefully some parts will be preserved to tell the impressive history of Belgium's wool processing industry.